We're about a week away from the HBCU Legacy Bowl, and after the events of last year, I wouldn't be shocked to see many players opt out of the game. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make it Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can go to FanDuel.com and put down a $5 winning bet, and you will get $150 back in bonus bets. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look and a preview towards Delaware State versus Howard men's basketball part 2, just like we did with Southern and Texas Southern women's basketball yesterday. In our second segment, we'll take a look at Prairie View A&M having to find a new homecoming opponent after their opponent canceled their football program. And quite frankly, I think it may be a blessing in disguise. But I want to kick this whole thing off with the Legacy Bowl and why I believe you will see some players opt out. At the worst, it wouldn't shock me. I don't know if I can point to a certain player and say that guy opt out or that guy will opt out, but it wouldn't shock me to see a player with a really good week of practice say, I'm not going to perform in the bowl. Now, I think last year it was a running back. I think it was Jarvion Howard who had a good combine. He said, yeah, I'm going to chunk the deuce on this event. Now, I'm not advocating for that, but it wouldn't be surprising to see a player who had a good Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday say, I'm not going to perform on Saturday. I put my film out here. I put my film out here in front of these scouts. They know my name. I'm not going to risk it. I saw some news this week, or rather, I was texted some news this week that it really hammered home. I have to talk about this topic because I had already planned it. I wasn't sure when I was going to do it. I was already leaning towards Monday. I thought that I didn't want to sully the week with the news. I thought it was a little bit Debbie Downer-ish, but I knew I needed to talk about it after I saw Davius Richard was put on the retired list by the UFL. He never came back from that injury. And who knows what his ceiling would have been? Who knew if he could have made a roster, right? He was a talented quarterback. He is one of the best quarterbacks that we have seen in HBCU football in a long time. Who knows what he would have been in the NFL if he would have made it to the NFL, if any of these things. But what I do know is that those opportunities were stripped away from Richard because of an injury in this game. Now, we could say injuries happen everywhere, and you would be true in saying that. But at the same time, it didn't happen anywhere. It happened here. It happened at the Legacy Bowl. And it wouldn't be surprising to see people be a little bit more hesitant because of it. I don't know if there was any major injuries the years prior. I don't remember any. And of course, guys come back nicked and bruised, of course, but major injuries, I don't really remember any. And there definitely wasn't one to this standard, right? Like this high. I was at last year's HBCU Legacy Bowl, and when Davius Richard went down, everybody went down. And that's not an exaggeration. The air was sucked out of the game. The product was significantly worse in the game after he left. He was clearly the best guy there, to be honest, especially at that quarterback position. So it was a whole totality of it. But to see a player score a touchdown, go down due to injury, and knowing it's Davius Richard, knowing what you thought he could accomplish, it couldn't have happened to a worse person. Like that couldn't have been a worse situation to paint. And I don't mean to say everybody isn't, I want everybody to come out healthy. But we're talking about somebody who we thought had a real ceiling, and it was taken away from him because of that game. Do you sit here and say, even though it's some new coaches, I think this was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Larry Scott. I think it was Larry Scott. I know you had the CIAA, so it was either Scott or Parker or that side of the ball. But I think Scott was working with the offense. I could be wrong, but that hearing that he was on the retired list and never bounced back and never really got back on the field, that was a tough pill to swallow, and it just brought it all home for me. There are going to be people who are looking at Davius Richard's injury and say, I don't want to have that happen to me. I'm going to bow out of this game. Now, here goes the other part of it. Is it's not irregular for players to bow out of the game. Yes, we're making this a big deal, and the reason I think it'll happen here is because of the Richard injury. But you look at a Shrine Bowl, you look at a Senior Bowl, man, one thing I've learned from going to the Shrine Bowl these last 2 seasons is that scouts don't even really care about the game. Media members are less likely to go to the game. A mentor of mine goes to the Senior Bowl on a yearly basis, and I'm pretty sure he leaves on Senior Bowl day. Like, this is not uncommon for players to not play in a game if they had a really good week of practice. But on the other hand, they are also in different situations. They may not feel like they need to perform beyond a couple of days in practice because their stock is already in a place where they like it. Meanwhile, a lot of the players in the Legacy Bowl are fighting for every single opportunity that they could have. So when you're fighting for every single opportunity, stepping away voluntarily takes an opportunity off the board. It's an opportunity to showcase yourself, even if it's not for the NFL scouts. Maybe it's the CFL scouts. Maybe it's the UFL scouts. And you may feel like I need to take every single practice, every single game, every single rep to maximize my stock. It's a different situation. But injuries are injuries, and career ending can be career ending. And it wouldn't shock me to see people say, I don't want to put myself in that spot. It's scary, man. It's scary. And I say this as a person who the game, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think the last game was not good. The last HBCU Legacy Bowl was not good. I'm trying to think of the one before that was. If I was a consumer, let me speak to you. You may be a consumer. I don't know. If you are a consumer, I would still go. I do think it is still an experience. I went as a ticket buying viewer once, and I had a great time. It was too freaking cold. That sucked, but like I had a good time. In the press box, the good time is a little different. It's not necessarily about the game. It's not necessarily about the environment. It's cool and it's nice to see, but it's not the same. If I were buying a ticket, I would definitely go because the vibe is probably still going to be strong. It's almost like a huge get together, to be honest. It's just a huge HBCU game. There's no stock of rooting for this person, rooting for that person, or rooting for this team or that team. It's more so rooting for this person and that person. It's more love than a normal game. So I do think that if you're a consumer, keep going. And I believe in supporting this event because it is a positive event. And the truth of the matter is, the more we support with our dollars, the more we buy tickets, buy merch, and the more we do all of these things, the longer the Legacy Bowl can last. And it is a positive event. This is not my shunning of the Legacy Bowl. This is not me downplaying anything. I think it is a great event for fans. I think it's a great event for players. I really do. So if you're buying a ticket, do that. Do that, please support it. But as a player, I might just say that game ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. Especially if the scouts ain't there anyway. It wouldn't be shocking. I'm just telling you, it wouldn't be shocking to see the scouts be gone by Friday. I seen that at the Shrine Bowl. I go to the Shrine Bowl every day of practice. Every day of practice, I go to the Shrine Bowl. I didn't this year, actually. I left. I followed suit. But the first time I went last year, I went every day of practice. And that last day of practice, first off, was a glorified walkthrough, number one. Number two, the scouts were gone. They dwindled, and it wasn't just because they were trying to get to Mobile. It wasn't. So I just thought I'd bring that little point of view up. Davius Richard got injured at last year's Legacy Bowl. Do we continue talking about that going into this year? Davius Richard's injury kept him from playing again. We haven't seen Richard touch a football again. So now I'm looking at the Legacy Bowl as a moment where this person had essentially their career ended, or that's what it looks like at the moment. I may not want to do that again. That is a decision that a lot of players in that game are going to have to make. Stay at practice, work through the couple of days of practice, of course. But when it comes to game time, are you going to play? You might have to. Different ways to look at it. But moving forward, I have another little opinion piece. I guess we just all on opinions this Friday. Thank you for joining me early on this Lover's Day. But homecoming. I'm not really a fan of the pushover homecoming games. I'm lessening how much I enjoy that. So let's push forward and talk about that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Factor. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab on the go, snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I'm trying to eat better myself. And one of the biggest challenges is when I haven't cooked and I've had a long day and I come back. That isn't really a problem with Factor meals because in just 2 minutes, there's no prep, no mess, just good food. Right. So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/locked on college 50OFF and use the code locked on college 50OFF to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's locked on college 50OFF at factormeals.com/locked on college 50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked on College, or excuse me, Locked on Today, which is going to break down all of the biggest stories around the world of all sports. So go ahead and check that out wherever you listen to or watch your podcast. Homecoming is an interesting event because it's a party. That's all it is. It's a glorified party on the field. And listen, I've talked to some of my friends about different games that aren't homecoming. I've been realizing that, okay, maybe more people view every game as a party with a little additional game attached to it. But the homecoming is really where that's the truth. I go to homecoming pretty much every year. I debate whether or not I'm going to go this year. And I feel like I do this every year. Am I going to go? Am I not going to go? And I end up going. But the thing about homecoming is, who are you scheduling? Prairie View A&M is going to have to answer that question again. They thought they already had the answer. It was North American University, and that was okay, cool, whatever. You playing North American University. I'm going to get to why I don't like that. But they can't do it anymore because NAU has canceled their football program after only 4 years. It wasn't a long-lasting program at all. To me, this is kind of a blessing in disguise for my liking. Because I can say we here. We should not be playing these teams on homecoming, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of it. Just at the end of the day, this is not what I prefer to see for on our homecoming schedule. Because I get the principle. Let's get the glorified. Let's get the easy win, right? Let's not glorified. Let's get the easy win. We're going to get in here. We're going to celebrate. We're going to get out of here. We're going to party. We're going to celebrate some more. I've grown tired of it. And I can say we, because Texas Southern is guilty of it. Texas Southern, I remember who they played last year. It was too doggone close. I remember that. I was just on the yard. I seen the scoreboard. Anyway, but Texas Southern played North American University in their first year of having a football program. And I remember that was my first year coming on the yard as an alum, right? That was I graduated. We had the pandemic. This was 2021. We still in the pandemic, but we was out there. And I remember that game, and people talk about, man, they're playing a football club. This isn't even a real school. This is just a club. This ain't a real team. I remember that vividly. It turns out they were just an NAIA school, but I get why people said that. A, we had never heard of North American University because, I mean, there's so many schools you've never heard of. But also, we've never heard of this football team because it was only existing for less than a year at that time. It was only a month. It was founded during the pandemic, started playing games in 2021. They were an NAIA school that never got full accreditation. Accreditation? Accredit? How do you say that word? I can see it. I can visualize it. They weren't fully accredited. I know that. I know how to say that one. But it's an easy win. You go in there, you smack them, you go out and you hit the yard. Like, it's cool for homecoming because sometimes people want easy wins. But the reason I'm against easy wins, and I realized this when talking about my desire for Norfolk State and Delaware State to play on homecoming, I like making big events bigger. I do. Is North American University going to travel? They'll probably travel to PV because I think it's based in Houston, so it's not far at all. But this is bigger than those two. Let's use Virginia Lynchburg because I think that's who TSU has for homecoming this year. Is Virginia Lynchburg coming down to Third Ward? Is Virginia Lynchburg traveling to Texas for this game to be in a homecoming, an HBCU homecoming? I doubt it. I really do. And when you're scheduling these small walkover schools, you are kind of ruining the experience. You are getting a easy victory, yes, but you're not building on this event. Like, imagine they play Alcorn the next week after Virginia Lynchburg, right? You go homecoming bye week, Alcorn. Now, imagine they made Alcorn that homecoming game. Do you have a risk of losing? Yes, you do. But I can guarantee you that Alcorn is popping out for a TSU homecoming. I can guarantee you the environment around it would be different. You scheduling these small schools who they're just there for a check. They don't care about your game. The fans aren't coming out. It's a limited thing. Homecoming is a party. It ain't going to stop because you lost. I can guarantee that those who want to party are still going to party because most of us ain't played the game. Most of us ain't that invested in the victory or the loss. I'm just trying to speak what I feel are facts. And I think bringing in fans from opposing teams, fans who can really add to the environment, pack out the stadium. I don't even go to the homecoming game. I'm not going to go watch TSU versus Virginia Lynchburg. I can tell you that right now. I'm not going unless I got some people who say, man, we really want to go to the game. And they like my closer friends. I am not going to Texas Southern versus Virginia Lynchburg. Maybe I'll walk by if I can remember this in a few months because we in February right now. So I still got quite a few months to go before we get to that. And I'll look to see how packed the stadium is. But I don't think it'll be that packed. But imagine, and this isn't about just TSU, so like we can take it out of them. Like just imagine, let me see if Alcorn has their schedule up. See, because I do think they do have their schedule up. And do they have their homecoming? You know what? It's probably against freaking Lincoln University. That's probably who it is, but it's just, for me, I just think it's better. Yeah, they don't put on here to say who it is, but it's probably against Lincoln. That Lincoln is on their schedule, but they don't say who it is. I don't know who their homecoming is off rip, to be honest. But the point is, because it's bigger than Lincoln, it's bigger than Virginia Lynchburg, TSU, PV, North American University, Alcorn, bigger than all of that. The point is, I think that homecoming, when you schedule a conference opponent, has the ability to be a such larger event than when you schedule this no-name college. No disrespect. I'm sorry. I'm not even gonna say no. I understand that's disrespectful. I apologize though. But you schedule this smaller school, this NAIA school, this D2 school that you think you're going to walk all over, and you're trying to get an easy victory. I think a good game does better than an easy one. I just do. That's my personal opinion. Let me know what you think. I don't like scheduling these smaller schools. Give me an FCS program. Give me a conference. Give me somebody who's going to want to come to the stadium. Somebody who's going to want to come to travel to me. Let's enhance this event instead of relying on the name of homecoming to make it a big deal. Because I don't know how many people are going to go for the game, I should say. I don't. Me and my people, we go for the yard. I'm just going to be real with you. And I'm not really going to check out the game. I'm going to be on the yard. Maybe you're different. Maybe your school as a whole is different. But for me, it was all about the yard. Now, I can tell you this. If you made Alcorn in the game instead of Virginia Lynchburg, oh, it's bigger than the yard now. I'll probably go to that game. Let it be Southern. I can guarantee you if it was TSU versus Southern at homecoming, I'm in the stadium. I'm buying my ticket already. And I'll go to the yard afterwards because that's actually a game I want to see. It's a much different deal. I just think that and Southern gonna have they gonna travel. Let me know what you guys think. But to me, in my personal opinion, the environment will be better if you bring a fellow HBCU. The stadium will be more full if you bring an HBCU. The game will be better. You run a risk of losing, yes, and everybody wants to win at homecoming. So I understand the premise of scheduling an easy game. I'm not here to shame anybody. I'm just here to say that's not what I want anymore. I prefer environment. I prefer stadium being full. I prefer just the whole aesthetic of it. It's going to be stronger. It's just going to be stronger, in my opinion. Schedule your easy game, but we're going to party regardless. We're going to have a good time regardless. If TSU would have lost that game, matter of fact, I ain't even hear nobody talk about the game. Like, I ain't hear nobody talk about it. Give me TSU versus Alcorn. Give me Alabama State versus Jackson State again. Like, give me these events where it's just packed out in the vet. It's packed out on TSU campus, right? Like, give me those events, man. I don't know. Maybe I need to ask somebody how they feel about it. But let's push forward. This one isn't football related. This is about Delaware State versus Howard. No, it isn't homecoming. It's the second time these two teams have faced off in men's basketball. Let's break it all down as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. And understand that the NFL is over, but the NBA is just rolling. Oh my God. FanDuel has everything you need, whether it's about Luka and LeBron, whether it's about De'Aaron Fox, whether it's about, trying to think who else got traded that was major. I can't think of, but Zach LaVine, right? Like, they had some big time players who were dealt in their new homes. What are they going to do? Go ahead and test your knowledge. If you want to talk about teams, you want to talk about individuals, they have all of that. The MLB is on their way back, so it feels like baseball is never gone for long. But there are so many different things for you to put money down on and win. It's just up to you to go to FanDuel.com. You got to go ahead and go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. And if you're new to FanDuel, you get $150 back in bonus bets if you put down a $5 bet that wins. Your first $5 bet must win, and you get $150 back in bonus bets. Go to FanDuel.com. Make every moment more. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I want to look at this preview. I want to preview this game between Delaware State and Howard men's basketball. We previewed Southern versus Texas Southern, how the hunted becomes the hunter, or really the hunter becomes the hunted, but you can say it both ways, to be honest, when talking about Southern and TSU. But now I want to take a different look at this. I want to take a look at this Howard versus Delaware State game, because this is a game that, for me, means a lot for the MEAC standings. You're seeing Howard, who is on a 2-game winning streak after losing 5 in a row. They're currently 5-2 in conference play, only 1 game behind Norfolk State, but they're only 1 game ahead of Delaware State, who is 4-3. And they've won 4 games in a row. So you're seeing two teams who are really starting to heat up a little bit. I don't know if heat up is the right word for Howard, because they were just kind of chilled out. But I do think that it is still appropriate to mention that they're on winning streaks. And for Howard, they're in the process of bouncing back. And winning this game will be a great sign that you are truly bouncing back. Because after losing 5 in a row, you knocked off North Carolina Central. That's a good victory, right? That's a solid win. You knocked off Maryland Eastern Shore as well, who's currently sitting at the bottom, so they don't have a win. But I think that Central win is still all right. It's not great. Delaware State will be a much better victory for you. The last two time these two teams faced off, it was a high-scoring affair. It was 100-94. And as for Delaware State, they've never scored 94 points in a conference game. They haven't. I won't say never. They haven't scored 94 points in any other conference game this year. They haven't allowed 100 points in a conference game this year. You go through it, and it's not really that close. The next week, they go 70, they allow 73. Next game, 73, 75, 75, 66, 61, 82 against Morgan on the third. But you're looking at it, they don't really allow that many points. It was against Howard, though, that they allowed 100. In no other game have they allowed more than 82 points. But Howard, on the other hand, that's kind of just where they were at that point. They were high scoring, allowing a lot of points. They score 100 versus Delaware State. They score 100 the next game against Morgan State. And then they allow 95, though. Then they score 90 against Coppin State the next week. So, or the next game. So you go 100, 190, but then you drop down. You're in the 70s, 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 70s against Hampton in OT. 66. You do allow 89 points in that game. That's the other time that they have been allowing points. I want to be very clear. It's not as if Howard hasn't been allowing points. They are not like Delaware State. Delaware State, that for the Hornets, the first time that they played the Bison was a real aberration. They haven't scored that many points. They haven't allowed that many points since it happened. For Howard, they have scored that many points, and they have allowed that many points. They allowed 89 to South Carolina State. They were 95 the game after that. So they have done it, and they have scored points. The thing is, they're also scoring again. They've also started scoring again. They scored 82 versus Central, 77 against Eastern Shore. So they have started scoring points again. This will be very interesting to me because as they sit here 2-3 in the conference, and I think Delaware State's actually tied with South Carolina State and Morgan State at 4-3, but I think Delaware State beat both of those teams. They just beat Morgan State, and South Carolina State, yeah, they beat them too. So we're getting to the point where everybody's about to start spinning the block and facing teams that they already faced this year. This will be an interesting game. Howard has two players who've been playing pretty well. You know, you're looking at Dylan Harper and then, excuse me, not Dylan Harper, Blake Harper. You're looking at Blake Harper and Ayodele Taiwo. They were rookie of the week and defensive player of the week. Taiwo just had his first start, and he almost had a double-double. Harper has been playing really well for them because he's won it 14 times. Like 14 times he's the freshman of the year. Let's be very clear. He is the freshman of the year. There's no need to even discuss it, to be honest. But they've been playing well, man. They've been playing well, trying to get themselves together, dig out of a little bit of a slump that they put themselves in. I won't say a hole, but Howard was definitely in a slump. I can't wait to see this game on Saturday because of the positioning, but then also how the game went last time. Will we see another high-scoring game? Will it be nearly 200 points put on the board for a second time in a row when the Bison play the Hornets? These are questions that I won't have the answers to until I have the answers to, and we may talk about this next week. I don't know. It's going to be heavy Legacy Bowl and football talk next week, but we'll see where we can fit in. On Monday's episode, we will have a Legacy Bowl preview of some sort. We'll have a Legacy Bowl preview and follow it up Tuesday with talking about the HBCU Combine. But in the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed, peace.